Yo, what's good? My name's Kang, like Kangaroo. I'm a Canadian that's currently living and working in Seattle as a software engineer. And on this channel, we explore tips and tricks that you can take advantage of in order to reach FIRE faster. Alright, there's going to be two sections, Canada side and US side, pretty straightforward. Okay, so before you move, there's obviously a bunch of things you have to do in Canada. One of the most obvious ones that comes to my head is pack. I think this is a really great time to downsize in general. If you ever want to try a capsule wardrobe, or you just got a bunch of stuff that you want to get rid of, now would be a really great time to do that. You should also cancel all of your subscriptions. I'm talking Netflix, gym membership, that's a big one, Amazon, all of that. All right, next up we have healthcare. In the US, your healthcare is going to be more or less the same, especially if you're going to one of these bigger tech companies, maybe even better in some cases, but you will probably have to pay. Whereas in Canada, mostly everything is free. So while you're still in Canada, you should definitely take advantage of that free healthcare. Get those checkups, get your blood work. And if you're under your parents' insurance, make sure to take advantage of that too. Get your glasses, get your teeth clean, all that stuff. Because you go to the States, you don't know how long it's going to take to get everything set up. You're also going to want to take pictures of all those important documents that you have. This is like your birth certificate, your, driver's license, health card, social insurance number, all that stuff. All right, so for your phone plan, I actually recommend keeping your Canadian phone number for the first couple of days while you're there. But once you get to the States, you can get a SIM pretty quickly, and then you can move your Canadian number to a cell forwarding service. The one that I use is Number Barn. It's basically just keeps your phone number and then forwards you all the texts that you get. It's like $2 a month, so I think it's a pretty good deal. All right, while you're in Canada, you want to set up where you're going to be sleeping for the first couple of days while you move to the US. Unless you get corp housing or have a friend who has a house that you can crash out, you're probably going to need to get a hotel or an Airbnb. Personally, I choose hotels because Airbnbs just kind of suck. And with hotels, if you say book for a week and you only end up needing 3 days, if you check out early, I'm pretty sure they'll refund you the difference. All right, next up, let's get your finances in order. This is probably going to be the hardest part or the most annoying part before you move, so make sure you listen up. All right, next up, you want to pay off your credit cards. Make sure that stuff is fully paid off so that when you move, you don't forget about it. Number two, if you have credit cards that have a fee on them, say for example, the Amex Gold, you want to either downgrade those or cancel those. But for all the credit cards that don't have a fee, say for example, that like CIBC card when you're like 16 years old, keep that card in order to keep your credit history. Now you might think that you're going to be in the US long term, but it only takes one PIP or one layoff for you to be right back in Canada, so it's better to cover your bases in my opinion. All right, in particular, if you have an Amex card like the Gold or the Plat, I want you to transfer your points out of the card before you cancel so you don't lose any of your points. Now there's a couple ways that you can do this. They actually have a program where you can transfer your points to the American card equivalent, but I think the exchange rate that you get is pretty bad. So I had like around 60,000 points and I'm pretty sure they were offering me like 40, which I was like, that's kind of sucky. So instead what I did is I transferred my 60,000 membership reward points over to Aeroplan because I knew that I would be flying back home through Aeroplan pretty often, and it ended up working out great for me. You also want to take advantage of any of your credit card's perks that you have. So say for example, I know the Gold card gets you like a statement credit if you book a flight. So I just booked a flight to make sure I didn't lose that statement credit. And I also think my card had a Nexus reimbursement, which I definitely took advantage of, and now I have Nexus. It's great. You never catch me lacking in the airport. So if you don't have Nexus, just get Nexus. All right, next we have your student loans. Unfortunately, if you leave Canada, you still got to pay your student loans. You can't just evade, debt. The government will find you. They'll always get their bag. So yes, you still have to pay your student loans. From my knowledge, you cannot pay OSAP, which is the Ontario student loans, from an American bank account. It has to be from a Canadian bank account. So you have a couple of options. You can either pay it all off, start your life debt free. You could transfer money into your Canadian bank account every single month in order to, pay off your loan. Or you can do what I do, just throw $1,000 into your Canadian bank account and just let OSAP take money from that every month. Another note on banking is that I would recommend you look into a cross-border banking account with Canadian bank like CIBC, RBC, whatever. Personally, I use the CIBC cross-border banking account. The UI really sucked, but it was a fully functioning bank account with a routing number, a debit card, all that stuff. For me, the account was really useful in the first month, particularly in the first week, but after that, it wasn't that useful at all, so I canceled it and moved all my money out. So it's definitely not a necessity. You can get everything done without this bank account, but for me, it was a nice to have. I would also recommend bringing some US cash if you have some. Canadian cards work, but it's always easier and better to have cash just in case. All right, next up we have investment accounts. If you don't have any investment accounts in Canada, you could probably skip this part because I'm going to get pretty nitty gritty into it. So I'll throw a time on screen that you can skip to, and I'll also leave it in the chapters. All right, so for all my homies who got their bag up, this one's going to be kind of complicated, I'm not going to lie. And I'm only going to be speaking about my personal experiences because again, I'm not an accountant. You should definitely go talk to an accountant. You're paying for an hour or two of their time, and it's definitely going to save you a lot of money in taxes, as you will see. All right, so for me, I had two investment accounts, the TFSA and a regular brokerage account. I never had an RRSP. In my TFSA, I liquidated all of my investments, moved it over to my brokerage account, and then rebought the positions that I was already in my TFSA. In my brokerage account, I basically did nothing and just kept it. The reason that I sold everything in my TFSA and basically liquidated it was because in the US, I'm pretty sure the TFSA is considered a trust. And from what I understand, it basically just means it's taxed out the wazoo and you don't get any of the TFSA benefit. On top of that, you have to do a bunch of different tax forms during tax season. And from what I've heard from my friends who kept their TFSA, it's really, really annoying. You also get all of your TFSA contribution back when you eventually move back to Canada and then start investing into your TFSA again. So for me, it seemed like a no-brainer to empty my TFSA. Now, from the research that I've done, it was very important for me that I liquidated my TFSA before I moved to the States. For my investments in my brokerage account, I just kept those because those are okay to have in the US. You do have to file a form every single tax season when you do your taxes, but I've done it before and the form is very simple and very straightforward. Apparently a lot easier than the TFSA form that you have to file. But, and this is a big but, if you keep your Canadian brokerage account, you will have to pay exit taxes when you leave Canada. This is called the departure tax. I can't remember exactly what form it is you have to file, but I'll throw it up on screen. What basically happens in this departure tax form is you list all of your holdings and then what price you got it for and then what price it is when you leave the country, and then any capital gains on those positions you have to pay to the government. After you pay your departure tax, your Canadian brokerage account comes with you to the US, if that makes sense. And every time you sell or liquidate one of your positions, you actually have to file that on your American taxes and not your Canadian taxes. But what sucks is that you can only do liquidation type actions. You can't do any buying. So for me, it was just kind of dumb to keep it. Looking back, I would not have done that. The other option that you have with your brokerage account is basically just to sell everything and then move that money with you to the States. But if you want that money in USD, the best way that you don't get screwed on the exchange rate is through Norbert's Gambit, which I'm not going to explain, but you can Google that. Also, for tax reasons, I think all of this has to be done before you move to the States as well, in the same way with the TFSA. To be honest though, if you're in this situation where you're really thinking about the best way to minimize the amount of tax and the conversion rate that you're paying, bro, you have too much money, just go talk to an accountant. It's going to save you the money in tax 10 times over, trust me. If I were to do this move all over again, this is what I would have done differently. Number one, I would have liquidated everything, my TFSA and my brokerage account, before I moved to the States. After liquidating everything, I would have done Norbert's Gambit to get all of that Canadian cash into US dollars. Then I would have opened a cross-border banking account with CIBC or whatever, transferred all of those US dollars into that USD banking account, and then when I moved to the States, transferred all of that USD into my new bank account. I think if I had done this, my tax bill would have been lower because I was a student the whole entire time, the year before I moved to the States. But again, I'm not an accountant, and I wish I had talked to an accountant before I moved because I could have probably saved a couple $1,000s in tax, but who knows? That's on me. I didn't talk to an accountant. All right, so now that we're done talking about investments, let's welcome back all of our friends who don't have their bag up. All right, so if you skipped ahead, welcome back. We were just wrapping up our dumb investment talk. Really, really boring. You didn't have to be there. Definitely not talking about you. Anyways, I think that basically wraps up everything I had to do before I left Canada. But one last thing you have to do before you leave is just to say goodbye to your friends and your family because now you're moving to America. Okay, so now that we have figuratively landed in America, there are a couple of P0 main quest items that you have to do within the first, day or 2 days of arriving in America. Number one is get a US SIM card. I think at this stage, a prepaid US SIM card from AT&T, T-Mobile, whatever, will suffice. And personally, I would wait a month or two before getting a year-long kind of plan because once you start work, you're going to have friends who have great discounts or your work's going to give you a good discount. So I'll wait off that. The prepaids are pretty good, so you're pretty much covered on that front. All right, now once you get that cell phone number, I would transfer over all your 2FAs and all of your important information over to that new cell phone number, and then move your Canadian number into that self-forwarding service like Number Barn or whatever. An important reminder for CRA, you have to have both of your SIMs active, just letting you know right now. All right, number two on the list of main quest items we have is to get a bank account. There are a couple options you have here. I think the big ones are Bank of America and Chase. And if you're coming to a big tech city like Seattle or SF, I would ask around to see if they have some kind of deal with you working at whatever big company. For me, I was able to get a credit card with a 10K limit right off the bat, which really, really upped my credit score and helped me build that credit, I think. Quest number three is getting your SSN. Again, like I said, all of these should be done on the first day, but SSN particularly, I think you should schedule an appointment as soon as possible. A lot of things in the US hinge off of the fact that you have this, social security number, your Venmo, investment accounts, a bunch of work stuff, everything, right? So as soon as you can get it, get it. When I moved here, it was during COVID kind of, so I'm sure that the process is completely different from what you will probably have to do now. Whatever it is, just make sure to get on top of that. That should be like day one, get SSN. All right, and the last item you need to take care of is getting an apartment. I have a whole entire video explaining this, so shameless plug, go watch it. But if you're moving during new grad season, which is around August, it's going to be a tough market. I think everyone else is also moving, so you're going to have to be fast and you're going to have to be aggressive with your applications and your viewings. And after those 4 main items are done, I think everything from this point is more or less straightforward. Might be a little bit tedious, but not as important, if that makes sense. I'm sure that I'm forgetting a bunch of stuff, so if you catch anything that I'm missing, just please throw it down in the comments so everyone else can see it. Now, hopefully this video wasn't too chaotic. I know it seems like there's a lot to do, but it's really not that bad once you break it down into little steps. And hey, if I can do it, you can definitely do it too. It's also really, really hot right now in Seattle, so, you know, if I was a little bit all over the place, that's because like I'm currently sweating, my whole entire back is drenched. And I know the editing in this video is not gonna be the greatest, but it's new grad season. A lot of my Canadian friends are starting to come here, my Canadian homies. So I wanna get this video out for you guys as fast as possible so you can at least take advantage of it. Now, if you got any value from this content, I'd really appreciate it if you let me know down in the comments what topic you want me to cover next, and to like and subscribe if you feel so inclined. And if you're curious to hear any more of my US versus Canada ramblings, you can watch this video right here where I talk about the truth about moving to America.